Comic book movies have been around since the 1940s, but they didn't reach mainstream popularity until the late 1970s. Over the last 50 years, comic book movies have fallen in and out of the cultural zeitgeist, their popularity usually propelled by standout flicks with some serious star power. Thanks to the rise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the foundational films that came before it, modern audiences have been blessed with some of the best comic book and superhero movies of all time. Today, let's take a look at the high-quality films that perfectly transported our favorite stories from page to screen, as we count down the top 10 comic book movies of all time. Spoilers ahead. Let's kick things off with Apart from a few select movies here and there, 20th Century Fox did not have the best track record with comic book properties. After some controversial storytelling decisions in X-Men 3, which annoyed more than its fair share of fans, Fox did a retcon 180 with X-Men Days of Future Past, and it was surprisingly good. Featuring countless characters and a stacked cast of actors, this tale of time-traveling mutants was packed with fan service moments, cheeky Easter eggs, and competent comic book action. Compared to the rest of the X-Men movies, which often have a habit of being either too campy or overtly dramatic, Days of Future Past nailed the atmosphere of X-Men while mending up past mistakes and providing a satisfying superhero flick to boot. Out of all the various comic book heroes, Batman has popped up in more movies, television shows, and video games than most others. After decades of the popular movies about the Caped Crusader, finding a new and interesting approach for sequels was starting to get tough. In comes Matt Reeves, the director of movies like Cloverfield and the modern Planet of the Apes movies, delivering a dark and moody take on Bruce Wayne's early years behind the mask. With Robert Pattinson in the lead role, the Batman defied all expectations, offering a claustrophobic detective-style mystery that often feels more like a horror film than a comic book adaptation. This movie seriously has it all. A grimy Gotham, hard-hitting fights, surprising character cameos, and one of the best depictions of the Riddler since Jim Carrey in Batman Forever. It might be a divisive pick, but the Batman deserves its spot on our list, no matter what the naysayers think. The modern MCU Spider-Man flicks are all fine and good, but there's nothing quite like Spider-Man 2 for longtime comic book fans. Released in 2004, this sequel laid the groundwork for all future comic book flicks, thanks to its serious tone, amazing characters, and impressive visual effects. Helmed by Sam Raimi, aka the guy who directed Evil Dead, this movie had it all. A darker story, amazing performances from Tobey Maguire and Alfred Molina, nuanced character development, and some truly unforgettable scenes. Seriously, I'll never forget that moment when Spider-Man stops the speeding train, or that climactic fusion reactor scene and Doc Ock's ensuing sacrifice. Spider-Man 2 isn't just one of the top 10 comic book movies. It's simply the best Spider-Man movie of them all. Although the phrase gets thrown around far too loosely nowadays, Avengers Endgame was a cinematic event when it first hit theaters. In April of 2019, if you weren't getting ready to watch Endgame, you were either completely uninterested in comic book movies or living under a rock. As the culmination of a decade's worth of storytelling, crafted over the course of 21 previous movies, Endgame paid off big time. In a staggering 3-hour runtime, this ensemble movie sees almost every single MCU superhero teaming up to take down Thanos, complete with time travel shenanigans, heart-wrenching sacrifice, and fan service galore. A crowd pleaser through and through, Avengers Endgame was the perfect punctuation for Marvel's Infinity Saga. It's no wonder the movie pulled in a whopping $2.8 billion at the box office, making it the second highest grossing film of all time. Watching superheroes team up to save the day is pretty cool, but after 2 Avengers movies, audiences were ready for something different. Captain America Civil War stepped up to bat, and, in a rare twist, saw the previously friendly teammates at each other's throats. Following the events of Captain America Winter Soldier, Civil War contained plenty of espionage action, but seeing our favorite heroes face off in a brutal fight was entirely worth the price of admission. Divided by their loyalties and differing views, Captain America and Iron Man feud from the start, but it all boils over in one of the coolest action scenes in the entire MCU. The airport battle from Civil War is the stuff of legend, with epic moments like Ant-Man's transformation into Giant Man, Scarlet Witch chucking cars at Iron Man's head, and, of course, the introduction of Spider-Man into the MCU. Let's also not forget the brutal end-film brawl between Cap, Iron Man, and the Winter Soldier, which wraps up the movie on a somber note. Civil War is a decidedly different kind of Marvel team-up movie, and we wouldn't have it any other way. There are great comic book movies, and then there are exceptional movies that just so happen to be based on a comic. Captain America: The Winter Soldier shows us the difference, because despite its trappings as an MCU flick, it's just one of the best political spy thrillers of the past few decades. More in line with the tone of something like Mission Impossible than The Avengers, Winter Soldier contains everything you'd want in a spy flick. It's got sleeper agents, secret societies, explosive gunfights, brutal fistfights, and an extremely cool and complex villain in the form of Bucky Barnes. Unlike some of the other early MCU movies, The Winter Soldier leaned into a serious and grounded tone, providing a more mature story that uses tension, violence, and mystery. If you ever want to get someone into comic book movies who might not be interested otherwise, you can't go wrong by showing them Captain America: The Winter Soldier. In the same way that Endgame was a cinematic event that garnered massive audience reactions, Infinity War was the talk of the town in 2018, but for a much different reason. Serving as the first half of the Infinity Saga finale, Infinity War saw the Avengers racing against the clock to collect the all-powerful Infinity Stones, lest Thanos complete his genocidal master plan. This results in a slew of awesome sequences, like the Avengers battling Thanos on planet Titan, featuring some incredible Doctor Strange action, a satisfying Iron Man vs. Thanos one-on-one, and of course, plenty of Spider-Man quips. The Guardians of the Galaxy are used to their full potential. Captain America comes back with a beard, and so much more. However, that's not what Infinity War's remembered for. In one of the most brutal cinematic gut punches in history, Infinity War wraps up with the snap heard around the world, as Thanos wipes out half of all life in the universe, including some of the most beloved characters in the MCU. Avengers Infinity War was a true roller coaster of a film, both in terms of action and emotion, and is by far the best MCU movie to date. Comic book movies love to highlight the hero, but every now and then we're treated to these stories from a different perspective. While other movies have given us a closer look at our favorite villains, none have done it better than 2019's Joker. Completely removed from any other Batman series, this movie tells an all-new origin for the Joker, also known as Arthur Fleck. Constantly bullied and mistreated due to his involuntary laughing fits, Arthur's life is one of depression, pity, and teetering insanity. Through a hefty use of brutal violence, Joker earns its R rating, which is made all the more disturbing by the movie's thoroughly bleak tone. Joaquin Phoenix plays the lead role to perfection and brings a deep-seated darkness to the Joker that's rarely seen outside of the comics. It seems like general audiences also loved this intense and thought-provoking thriller. Joker is currently the highest-grossing R-rated movie, outpacing films like Oppenheimer, Deadpool, and The Matrix Reloaded. Without a doubt, Christopher Nolan is one of the best directors of our generation, and when he decided to tackle Batman for his big comic book outing, we knew we were in for a treat. The trilogy kicked off strong with Batman Begins, but The Dark Knight was a whole different beast when it released in 2008. Backed by a heavy score written by Hans Zimmer, The Dark Knight showcases Gotham in Nolan's signature style, making even the most basic scenes feel epic. That said, no amount of amazing cinematography or cool special effects can top the real gem of The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger as the Joker. Putting in one of the best performances of all time, comic book movie or otherwise, Heath Ledger disappears into the role of the Joker. He steals every single scene along the way. He works flawlessly with Christian Bale as Batman, leading into an unforgettable interrogation scene, a maniacal chase sequence, and so much more. So many things about this movie are perfect. The opening bank heist, the Joker's iconic, "Why so serious?" the hospital explosion, and the list just goes on and on. If you've never seen The Dark Knight, do yourself a favor and watch it immediately. The X-Men film franchise started long before the MCU, and for many of us comic book fans, it was one of our beloved medium's first good modern adaptations. At the heart of that series is the hesitant hero Wolverine, played by the affable and absolutely shredded Hugh Jackman. Logan shows us a more tender and reserved side of Wolverine, and as one of the final films in the X-Men franchise, it's a bittersweet end for a beloved friend. In the film, Wolverine helps an ailing Professor Xavier, living in a future where mutants are dying out and all hope is lost. However, things get more complicated when Wolverine encounters Laura, a young mutant with familiar powers, and begrudgingly becomes her guardian. Through his relationship with Laura, Wolverine gets a final redemption arc and rediscovers his humanity in the process. Of course, it wouldn't be an X-Men movie without some adamantium action, and Logan offers that with a gory punch. However, it's the heart, charm, and undeniable emotion that puts Logan on the top of this list. We couldn't imagine a more fitting finale for Wolverine. That's a wrap for Geekiverse Magazine's Top 10 Comic Book Movies. If you had a blast with this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and tap the notification bell so you're always in the loop. For even more geeky goodness, visit us at geekiversemagazine.com. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep it geeky.